Chapter 1. The story begins in the city of Tungjuo. The citizens here are announced through a written declaration on the tower that the eldest daughter of the Divine Sword Dynasty, Li Qing, is going to tie the knot with Zhao Dian, who is the descendant of the Zhao immortals. The wedding was a prerequisite for Zhao Dian as he rescued QingYu, the protagonist and one who was previously King's finance, from the wilderness where no one dares to set foot. The residents seem to grieve the news, however, they admire the kindness that Mr. Zhao and Ms. Li Qing the princess, has shown as they visit QingYu. However, scenes inside the Qin family, a family with two gods of war, courtyard are pretty different. The couple of Zhao Dian and Li Qing spit off putting words to Yu's shattered body. For Qing, the Qin family is nothing but the dog of her own royal family, whereas she is destined to take a wider sky. But then suddenly, Qin is awakened by the callings of the beasts and dragons, and he immediately drowns into the guilt of not being able to protect his father and grandfather. As he narrates his story, he reveals that in the past, he aimed to avenge the couple who disgraced his bloodline. For this purpose, he interrupted the couple on their wedding day but was humiliated by Zhao Dian in public and was exiled to the Great Desert. There he was rescued by Li QingYu, the sister of Li Qing. The young woman looked after him until he awoke after 10 years. But QingYu was executed by her own sister, which angered Qin. He rushed to the royal family to get his revenge, but the family had already left. But when he trained and finally achieved supremacy, the couple again chased him. By then, Zhao Din had become lord of the immortal clan, while Qing had become the empress of the continent. The couple then joined the monks to hunt Qin down and was confronted by him in the Great Desert. He was outnumbered by his enemy, so he used the last bit of his powers to self-destruct. Present day. During his visit to the Great Wilderness, he was blessed with the Sutra of Desolate of Heaven, which seals 108 ancient beasts and 72 ancient divine beasts. He can wake one of these beasts already. He awakes the fierce beast, Geras, who masters the power of flesh with strong muscles and bones and is deemed invincible. This beast can also open his cultivation at the first level of the spirit realm. The first one to face reincarnated Qin is his traitor uncle, Qin Xuan. QingYu screams at his uncle for betraying his own clan. He further tells him that the only place left for him is La Muerte and executes him. Chapter 2. The capital of the Sword Dynasty is all set to witness the wedding of Qing and Zhao Din. The city murmurs in each other's ears their thoughts regarding the marriage while both the groom and the bride receive the blessings of the royal emperor, John Li. As the wedding festivities commence, a spear is on a flight to burst the bubble of romantic vibes. John bursts into rage when they realize that the culprit is QingYu. He warns them that his new version is pretty terrifying compared to the previous one, as he could not unlock all the desolate beasts before he was reincarnated. He breaks the ground with his revelation, to which the audience stands spellbound. For Qing, it is unbelievable as she reckons that QingYu's body was shattered and he became an invalid. Chapter 3. In a satirical response, Yu declares the descendant of immortals as unreliable. Li Jian tries to cool the environment by showing his concern towards Yu's injuries and expresses his intent to invite him to the marriage. Yu cuts him off and jogs his memory of how his father was the reason Li Jian is alive. Yu aims his spear at his jugular vein and confronts him for treating the Qin family to the worst. He spills the tea about how the villain couple conspired to kill his father and grandfather and conceived hatred in his heart. The air fills with indistinct murmurs when Zhao Dian intervenes and deduces that Yu faked his injuries, which led him to underestimate the protagonist. He challenges Yu, and both step into fight. The armed forces surround the king while the king instructs Dian not to take it too seriously as the Qin family has magnificently contributed to his dynasty. He suggests Dian withdraw all of Yu's cultivations and get him trivial punishment. Dian is confident about his first level cultivation and uses his first rank immortal sword called the Green Flame. On the other hand, Yu introduces his weapon, which belonged to the god War, who was 6th rank mortal and had drunk the blood of thousands. The feud commences as both rush to each other, while Yu revives Geras. Chapter 4. QingYu yells the word break, and his mortal spear cracks the first-ranked immortal sword of Dian. Dian panics in bewilderment as he is unable to grasp that his immortal sword has been shattered by a mortal weapon of his nemesis QingYu. While he struggles to believe in this gravest fact, his ribcage is hit by the same mortal weapon which flabbergasts the bystanders. The king underpins the adrenaline rush and is unable to believe his eyes. Li Qing, on the other hand, denies her loss against Yu and urges Dian to get up and fight back against the descendant of the Qin family. Yu ridicules Dian, who is a weak, vulnerable and not so good son-in-law for the emperor. Dian declares his spear was an immortal heirloom that the Qin family hid from them. Yu states that his immortal weapon is not worthy enough to compare with his spear, which is bathed in the blood of thousands. He further reveals that Jairus has the capability to turn into any weapon. He states that the spear currently beholds the status of the second rank among immortal weapons. Which the king is tentative as he claims every move of the Qin family is under his surveillance and doubts whether this is a weapon you obtained in the great wilderness. He decides to wait until all of Yu's abilities are revealed and expresses his disappointment towards Diane as he couldn't deal with QingYu. This turns on his fears switch, and Diane attempts to attack Yu. Chapter 5. He, however, continues to best Diane and squashes his chest with his sturdy shoes. Standing on the busted body of Diane, Yu reminds him of the atrocities he did to his father and grandfather by executing them. He tells him that only blood will satisfy his thirst for revenge he has been beholding since their death. In misery, Diane calls for help as Yu prepares himself for another attack. The princess also urges the king to protect her fiancé. While Yu is all set to send his rival to hell, Diane is protected by the White Guard, Beivuti. Beivuti is King's personal bodyguard who masters horizontal skills and is a second-level master of the spiritual realm. He snatches Diane away from Yu's grasp. King urges Beivuti to kill Yu for disrespecting the law and hurting the royal family. Whereas the sly king tells him to abolish only Yu's limbs and cultivation as he wants to contribute to the Qin family. Beivuti is positive about his job and swiftly launches himself like a rocket to his target. Yu admires Bei Wu's skills and struggles to combat his power. Chapter 6. Yu's beast helps him outperform his sturdy and unbeatable nemesis. Beivuti is again astonished by Yu's power. Defeat seems to be a hard pill to swallow for Beivuti as he sees himself overthrown by the young QingYu. After he, with his invincible skills, gets rid of the great Beivuti, he declares that the next to his death list is the ruling monarch. Standing square-shouldered with his immortal spear, he looked no less than a miracle. Blood saturates his skull when he hollers, "Li John." Li John reminds him of the power of the royal family. QingYu is unable to grasp his point when he is surrounded by a circle of armed forces. The soldiers chant together, "Go to hell, QingYu." QingYu finds it funny to call such feeble arms as the royal forces and takes a flight to the king after dodging each soldier. He grabs Li John by his neck and grabs the attention of the Morning King, who yells, "Father!" while holding her dying fiancé. The soldiers rush toward their emperor. Each sweat gland on Li John's body seems to be hyperactive. Nonetheless, he warns you that even if he kills the king, the second-ranked divine guards will not spare him from exiting the palace. Yu tells him that his guards may have lethal iron armor as their strong suit, but they also lack speed, which is fatal for a warrior. He then strangulates the king to death. Chapter 7. Just the moment when Yu was about to execute the king, a sudden huge bang interrupted. With a bang appeared the commander of the immortal clan, Zhao Huan. His angelic appearance was the reflection of his instinct. He advises Yu to forgive all his enemies as he expects him to be a forgiving man. He requests Yu to forgive Li John as the royal family has strong ties with the immortal clan. While Yu continues to grasp the king by his neck, Diane asks his second uncle to kill Yu. The king, on the other hand, feels himself on cloud 9 while telling Yu that he will not be able to execute today. Yu contemplates that he is not an opponent of the commander. The commander assures Yu that he will let his faults go unnoticed as all of them are excusable and reminds him that the immortal clan has always served mankind. Huan informs Zhao Dian that he will have to confront the family law after he returns because of his despicable acts. He also emphasizes that QingYu is his family's fault. Subsequently, Huan urges Yu to let the king go. He refuses to abide by the coercion of the 9th level of the spiritual realm. The commander reminds him that Yu cannot compete with his 9-level power with a mere first-grade spiritual realm, and Yu lets the king go. To everyone witnessing, it seems that Yu has killed the king. Chapter 8. QingYu swirls the king's body and throws it toward the immortal commander. Immediately after, he tries to escape the place with words, "Farewell, immortal commander, we have a long way to go." He is, however, coerced back by the immortal commander via a force that is 10 times stronger than the former coercion. The immortal commander tells QingYu that to escape from his hands is too big for Yu's skin. Yu definitely finds himself in trouble when he revives Jairus. He breaks through the coercion, leaving Zhao Dian and King Li astonished by his strength. He bids farewell to the immortal commander, who mocks his delusion of power. He asks Yu whether he believes that he can escape his grasp by any means. Yu shifts his concern to the dying Zhao Dian and tells him either the commander can follow Yu or save his dying nephew, who is deeply injured. Yu tells the commander that he should choose rationally. The conversation is intervened by the plea of Zhao Dian as he calls his uncle for help. The commander heals all the injuries of Zhao Dian, and Dian requests his uncle to avenge him, otherwise, he will not be able to sleep properly. The immortal commander promises him that he will balance his loss. Chapter 9. The immortal commander informs King Li about the demise of her father and tells her to assist her husband aptly. In her grieving state, she concedes to the commander's instruction. Huan rises up in the air and notifies the public about the death of their emperor. He tells them that the immortal clan will rule the dynasty as an interim authority. He asks them to stay alive while they try to capture the culprit. One of the royal guards tries to get the princess's words. King Li tells him that it is all upon the immortals now while she carries her father's corpse. Several miles away, Yu is on the run. He affirms that, like he has killed Li Jian, he will be pursued several encounters. He decides to leave the land of the Divine Sword dynasty. It also crosses his mind that the appearance of Zhao Huan was strange, but he ignores the thought. He lets the rest of his enemies live and decides to come back for them. It is made public that Yu has killed the king and is on the run, and anyone who brings him to the authorities will be awarded a hefty reward. While he travels on a carriage, a fellow passenger seems to have her eyes on Yu. He, unaware, plans to leave the dynasty and settle in a larger land, the Tianhe dynasty, temporarily. The Tianhe dynasty has thousands of cities and several powerful families. A girl, Xiao Yue, in the carriage wonders why her grandfather has let this casually cultivated man in the carriage. The grandfather tells her that they need his sturdy muscles, and they will come in handy for their safety. Xiao Yue wonders why her grandfather, who was the king of Zenin, needs a person for his safety. Yu, however, is able to overhear their conversation. Chapter 10. The king of Zenin of the Tianhe dynasty was protecting the borders from the devils, and the late king of the Tianhe dynasty was killed by Dian. The riders tell the king that they are approaching the dynasty. In response, the king instructs them to reach their destination ASAP to avoid any accidents. Right after his instruction, the caravan is attacked by the killer of the dead sect of the Tianhe dynasty. She was there to take the king's head. The dead sect was the famous hunting force of the Tianhe dynasty. The killer in black attire demanded the king to obediently provide her with what she needed. But the king prepares himself for a face-off. His guards also come forth to battle the killer of the dead sect of the Tianhe dynasty. Meanwhile, Yu stands puzzled, trying to contemplate the situation. He tells her she will not be able to defeat him single-handedly. She should have brought some of her comrades. She replies, "Naturally, I am not alone." The end. For now,